We take strength in our leadership action in all matters, and especially in curriculum matters, which of course is the business of the school, teaching and learning. We take strength if we're able to carry important ideas around in our heads. Now, having taken a bit of a dip into academia, one likes to sort of coin a new term. So I've called this cognitive portability, being able to carry it around in your head rather than having to go and look something up in a book or ring up your neighbour principal to find something out. We can't carry everything in our heads, so we need to be discerning about just how much we can have up in there, knowing that if we've got it up there, it's actually going to benefit our interactions with others, our occasional thinking, our incidental thinking, and our planned thinking. It empowers us to have cognitive portability. So what is involved in developing curriculum fluency or curriculum literacy if you choose? Well, I'd argue that there are 3 aspects that you need to try to carry in your head. The first one is knowing what the 4-point direction of this revision of the New Zealand curriculum is about. What are those 4 points? Can you carry them in your head? The second area is the school's teaching obligations in terms of the requirements of the revised national curriculum. Can you actually state, can you tell somebody else what the requirements are? Well, they're not very complicated, and I can promise you that if you invest a little bit of time just committing those to your mind, you'll start to feel the strength of your own professional leadership. And the third major aspect for curriculum literacy is actually having some knowledge of the dimensions of the curriculum itself. And the first step in that is probably what we might call some surface knowledge. So what is that 4-point direction for the revised curriculum? This has already been covered in this resource, but we'll just go through it again. The first one is rationalization of learning. What learning is important for our students? What are we going to focus on in our school? What are our priorities? Now this guides our direction. If we can keep that up there, it is going to influence our thinking and our practice. Second point, quality teaching, or if you like the word pedagogy, so be it. But what does quality teaching mean in our school? How is it manifest in practice? How is it defined? The third point, school ownership, localising the curriculum so it's got true meaning for our particular students in our school. And the fourth point is community engagement, teaming up, the Tama Umanga initiatives and so on. So what strategies will we use to give every encouragement and opportunity to those who are involved in the life of the learner, the student, to be part of their education? So 4 things in the direction of this implementation of the revised curriculum: rationalisation, quality teaching, school ownership, and engagement. Can you carry those in your head? The second area where, if we've got strength of cognitive portability, that will actually enforce and strengthen our practice, concerns the actual requirements on schools for the different dimensions of the curriculum. They're not hard, they're nicely stated, they allow a lot of scope for school-level interpretation. They're on page 44 of the document. The first one is that your school has to be underpinned by and consistent with the principles. That means the principles are not just a nice statement of idealistic blah, they need to be seen in the practice of your school. Second requirement, the values. The requirement is that you will model, encourage, explore the values with your students. The third requirement, the key competencies, that you will support students to develop the key competencies. That's the alpha and the omega of the requirement. Not very hard to have to remember, but if you know that that is a requirement, it allows you to see the possibilities because you're not constrained by a whole lot of prescriptive detail. If somebody says to you, oh, but you've got to do this, you've got to do that, come back to page 44. That is what is expected of you, not somebody's embellishment. Embellishment of requirement is rife in our system. The requirement is on page 44. And that fourth point, providing effectively taught programs of learning as they are set out in the learning area statements, those 1 or 2 page statements about what a learning area is all about. Now, when it comes to having an overview, a conceptual overview of the curriculum, this is another point where we need to have some, as I've mentioned before, surface level knowledge of what those different aspects are. Now, right at the centre, in a diagrammatic depiction of the national curriculum, I've placed the key competencies. I've asked many audiences of principals and teachers around New Zealand to tell the person beside them what the 5 key competencies are. Now, a year ago, many people struggled to say what the 5 competencies are. When I ask that question now, more and more people are showing confidence. Well, that is a first and fundamental point, is to be able to say, well, the competencies are thinking, language, symbols and texts, managing self, relating to others, and participating and contributing. Now, if we can carry that in our head, we're able to talk about it in our practice. We're able to see it in our practice. We're able to justify it in our practice. It does not require that we have pages and pages and tomes of detailed documentation about what each of those means. It requires some cerebral fluency, if you like. Sitting around those who've got the 7 values, I've asked many audiences for months now, who could tell me what the 7 values are? And I have to tell you, I've never seen a hand go up. Now, there's a message in that, and we'll come to this point in the section on the values. Then sitting around the values, we have the learning areas, and most people will be able to say what those learning areas are. We've become very familiar with them, but the real test is not being able to name science as science, but to be able to say, hey, science is this, in a nutshell. The essence of science is this. Then sitting around the learning areas, we've got the 4-point vision that's provided by the national document. In other words, what is it that we're seeking for our young people of New Zealand as a consequence of a good education system? We want our students to be, our young people to be confident, to be connected, to be lifelong learners who are actively involved in their community and in contributing to our society. Then around those, we've got the principles that a school is required to underpin in its practice. So all in all, only 31 plus big picture things at a surface level for us to have to try to come to grips with. And when you put the number there, it seems to present something of a challenge for us, but it can be done.